Hey everyone, I'm Jason Ward, and you're watching the Making Star Wars show. Today, me and my buddy Rob are going to be talking about Indiana Jones, The Mandalorian, and some other art stuff.
It's not about spaceships. It's not about spaceships. It's not about spaceships. It's not about spaceships.
How's it going, man?
Hey, what's up?
Just still trying to get my head around this new setup and messing with the blue screen and trying to get these lights out of glasses. That's almost impossible. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to throw the glasses off, but then I could barely see the chat. So I'll be like, Merry Christmas, Santa? You know, when I'm reading it. So
Jon Favreau's like, it's not so easy now, is it? Paparazzi. Now you gotta actually like produce the content with the green screens.
Yeah, right. You know, he's been rich for so long. He's like, why doesn't this idiot just get a volume? Why doesn't he just do it in the volume like we do? Why are these YouTubers so out of touch? There's a volume now.
You don't got one? You get a taco truck too. You know?
He seems like a totally reasonable guy for a Hollywood person. I'm only kidding, obviously, but yeah. So our buddy at Bespin Bulletin, who everyone should be following, who follows spoilers and scoops and that kind of jazz, and who I'm going to be honest with you guys, should have a lot more respect in this whole thing. It's a little bit silly because the dude is just pretty on all the time, and he's pretty reasoned, you know?
Can I ask a question about that? Do you think it's because it's Bespin and people are like, that's a first world problem? You know, like Bespin is like upper class, right? Like the 1%ers. I mean, it's a mining colony, but they seem pretty posh.
I mean, I'm going to blame racism.
Don't even joke about that. YouTube is fierce. So
YouTube is fierce. Yeah. No, but I mean, what? Lando's my favorite character. I have black friends. No, I'm kidding. Anyways, yeah. So Bespin had a story up today about Katie Sackhoff, and he pulled the clip. So I wanted to give him a plug, and I'm gonna play, at least attempt to play the video that he embedded of Katie Sackhoff talking about going back to work. And I hope it's not too loud. I can't control the volume on this.
Oh no.
One. So good luck.
Can't hear anything.
No audio?
No audio.
Okay, well, she's basically just saying that she's going back to work and what could it be on. So it's not really that great. So I don't know why the audio didn't play. That's life. Anyways,
Favreau's like, right. 2 Favreau, 0 making Star Wars.
And John Williams is like, why don't they score this? Boom, 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 boom.
George is like, the dialogue is irrelevant.
George is just like, don't worry about it, Jason. We'll fix it in editing. But yeah, so all the signs of Mando going back to work are there right now. Down at the set over outside of Los Angeles, though, where they filmed the live action stuff, still looks like it's for Kenobi to me. It doesn't mean that it is. I am in no way pretending to know exactly what I'm looking at every time I look at it. Like, I'm not trying to push that. That said, it looks like they are building Tatooine sets. Now, is there a chance Mando goes to Tatooine in season 3? Sure, but I think that it just like going, like treating that as of course he is kind of, no at this point. And they pull so much from original trilogy architecture to like, sorry, like I know people go crazy at me about it. Like once they get obsessed with the show, but like Arvala 7, yeah, it has some mud, but you know, I mean, it all feels like it all looks like Tatooine, most of those places, you know what I mean? Like they all kind of, I'm not too crazy with the Mandalorian's environments overall. It's like it all kind of feels the same. It's very Star Warsy, so it captures that, but it also doesn't necessarily break any new ground for the most part.
Was the scrapyard junk planet that was in Mando, right? With the AT-AT like junk. Thought that was cool. I mean, it's essentially the junkyard from Armed and Dangerous.
Yeah, and I'm honestly talking more about season 1, to be honest. Like
Right.
on those planets where they did more exterior sets.
Mm.
And it felt like and when they were doing those, like, you really couldn't tell, is this Tatooine or not? And you know what I mean? Because it might as well have been. At the same time, I guess a lot of people like that vibe. They consider that the Star Wars aesthetic, and it works. But yeah, so there was like rumors, that like baby Grogu was coming back and all this stuff, and I still hope it's not exactly true, to be honest with you. What I want from this season, and that's good. Chat could let me know, Rob. You could let me know if you have anything on your mind with that. But I wanted to go and deal with Mandalore itself. I want to see the planet in live action. I want to see what's gone on there, and they have this really weird place, this really weird problem where Bo-Katan is kind of the rightful heir to Mandalore when you get down to it. Like, she is the one who should be in control there. At the same time, this new dude comes up and he has the sword, and now it's rightfully his. He seems to be a good guy to her, so it doesn't seem like she's going to want to stab him in the back. So, and she's been a hero for all of these years, as far as we know. So I don't expect her to start like all of a sudden becoming, I'm going to get that guy. But I mean, it could go that way. And there's like a lot of places that there has to be drama. There has to be conflict. If the characters are all on the same side and everybody's friends, where, you know what I mean? Where do you take it? But so it makes me think that, though, that what they'll do is they'll end up proving him, Din Djarin, to be the rightful like guy or owner of the sword, and they'll take it into a place where he's like, he proves himself to her, and I think that there will probably be conflict in that too.
He gets the sword, and he goes, "I have the power," right? And you're like, power. "Whoa!"
Yeah. But
Mando of the universe.
But it's inverted, so he turns into a dude that looks like Prince Adam with the Prince Adam haircut.
It's got the Valiant.
The Valiant
underwear.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kevin
By the
Smith's
way, I can't talk about the He-Man show because I'm under an embargo, I think, still.
Ooh.
But I can't wait to talk about the He-Man show on this show. So once we get there, because there's so many Star Wars connections to it, it's like no secret that
the only reason I haven't canceled my Netflix.
Really? Yeah.
Well, I've been waiting for Stranger Things season 4 for like 5 years. So like, other than,
it has been a long time.
There's some fun anime like The Great Pretender I really like, which is like an anime based stuff. It's all like heists, like it's nothing fantastical. It's all just heists, which is really good. I enjoy it. But I'm like, is it $15 a month good?
Yeah. I know. I streaming is kind of, this last month or two has been pretty boring for me. I haven't really liked anything. I've been kind of like, about most of it. So, yeah. So in the chat, let me know what you guys. So, Brandon, really quickly, or sorry, Dewey says the Grogu rumors from Fandom Wire. They say Din and Grogu will be in Boba Fett. So yeah,
if Boba Fett jumps around time, though, that would work too, right?
Sure. Yeah, I guess it's possible. And like, I'm curious if it's like a big role, if it's like a big, if that's true, or is there sort of like a montage of all of the things that have happened to get us like up to speed? Because when we get to Book of Boba, most of us are going to have seen The Mandalorian, right? But they may have to make that show as if you haven't, as if it's your first Star Wars kind of experience. They tend to treat most things in that way to some extent. Like, you could just pick up and watch Loki. A lot of stuff you'd miss in the subtext, but you can just pick up Loki and start watching it. And I think that it's kind of like, you learn he's a bad guy and he did these things and he was punished in these ways. And I kind of think Boba in certain ways is going to have those kinds of themes. Maybe. It's hard to say. But yeah, so and really quickly, I don't want to ignore the chat because I like when the chat's going off. But Yeah. I told Santa happy birthday week before the show. It's his birthday week, so. And make sure you check out his show too if you want some pretty chill Star Wars stuff. That's good. You mean you don't have a giant LED screen behind you? No, Santa hasn't brought me one yet, unfortunately.
Yeah, Santa. It's like, I just make toys. I don't make electronics.
Right? Yeah. Jason, could the Tic Tac be Hondo? I bet you it is. I bet you it's Hondo for sure. The first planet on the tundra was cool. Yeah, like the I can't remember. Like I have a hard time with the planets in in Mando too. Like all the names and the planet, like everything that's named in Mando is for whatever reason extra hard for me. Like unlike any other Star Wars thing ever. I just, you know what I mean? I just I struggle with it.
I don't remember the names in Solo. I just think we're in EU territory now with that sort of thing.
Yeah, things don't get enough time to gestate and just sit with you, and you're like, yeah, and George Lucas was really good with names though. At least I think so. Anyways, like even the throwaway ones like Malastare, like that's a badass name. It was a throwaway line, and Naboo and all that. I remember back to the 90s when Heir to the Empire came out and everyone called it Coruscant. And then and even Jake Lloyd struggles with it because he was calling it that for a long time. And then George Lucas decides, oh, let's put the French spin on it. I think accents are funny. And then it's Coruscant.
But it's in the audio cassette tapes from 91, 92. Coruscant. They pronounce it that way in the
Did they?
Those audio. But yeah, I had those. So
I believe I had one that was read by Dennis Lawson.
One of them was read by Dennis Lawson,
and I'm curious if it was changed. Because
there's a new if you go to Audible, the Heir to the Empire is all decked out with sound effects now, and it's their 20th anniversary version.
But if anybody has the original one,
the abridged
one, and can you confirm if it was said that way, or if it was said Coruscant originally, or did they change it at some point in the 90s or multiple times?
I'll dig it up.
Yeah, you actually have the actual cassette still?
Somewhere I got this stuff, man.
For some reason, I could remember what the cover of the Dark Force Rising cassette looks like in my head, which is really weird. But
it was red.
Yeah, it had the little book title, but it had a black tape case, which was kind of weird. So okay, what else we got here? Wasn't Bo-Katan essentially a terrorist with Pre Vizsla's Death Watch? She got checkered past as far as being a hero. Well, see, what happens is her sister is Satine. Satine wants to bring Mandalore into a more peaceful, modern, less Klingon way of being. And Bo-Katan is a traditionalist. And so Death Watch plays on those traditional values and exploits them to get a bunch of people behind their lunacy, which I believe we're going to learn ends up being you don't take your helmet off and gets all culty as time goes on. I think that's where this is going. But once Maul takes over, and it's kind of revealed that this was all an elaborate plan to basically steal Mandalore and put a guy who wasn't from Mandalore in power, she and 7 other of the Mandos defect from that. And so when we meet her, so that is a huge heroic moment, and she saves Kenobi, and she does get onto the right path. And by the time we see her in this newest iteration, she's saying hey, that's a cult, and seems pretty heroic and good and on the right side of things, especially like all of through Rebels and stuff like that too. So I think she's closer to being a hero who was on the wrong side of politics. And in the Clone Wars, no one was on the right side of politics. Corruption just utterly tore everything apart, and Darth Sidious's plan tears everything apart. So even we're probably going to learn Cassian is from a separatist world, and then they pay the price for that post Clone Wars. And so it's just kind of like I think how it's going to one of the things that I think Lucasfilm likes to do is show how normal people really kind of get screwed over by politics and by ideologies and things like that. Like I said, like the most telling moment ever was in the Young Indiana Jones Chronicle, and this is during the Lucas era, of course, but when he talks about how, before Pancho Villa, the Mexican government stole his chickens, and now under Pancho Villa, they steal his chickens. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, and that's kind of the point, is
they're gonna do the exact same thing with porgs. Under the Empire, they stole my porgs. Under the rebellions, you're stealing my porg. Literally, like Grogu's back and he drops a porg. Oops.
Yeah, Grogu goes full Ozzy Osbourne and bites the porg's head off, and
it's a Minoc.
He's on the Jedi Temple, like it's the Alamo. It was
that took a dark turn, Jason.
It really did, but he looks great with the eyeliner on, with the little streaks down here. So yeah. Anyways, Han Solo is in Boba Fett. Is that speculation, Mr. Michael Freeman? Is that a hope, a wish, a desire? And Kira, yeah. Wait, and who, Michael? And who? I would love to see Han Solo in there. I mean, I kind of doubt it though. I mean, it would be great, but I kind of just feel like when you have somebody who's big, usually, if they're not doing weird head capture stuff, like with Luke Skywalker, you usually kind of like start to hear about it a bit. But that would, I mean, I wonder how Boba is going to reconcile with the Skywalkers. Does he? How does that work? Like this guy like seems to be pretty hell-bent on revenge. The first thing he does is like go back to Jabba's, take the palace, which either because he felt like that's what he was working for years, or because he doesn't like Bib Fortuna. But it's like the guy's not letting stuff go. He doesn't. He held a grudge. Yeah. And he has this grudge against Mace Windu all that time too. So maybe this is a story about how he lets go of it. I don't know, but if he lives for any amount of time at all,
the Book of Boba Fett, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Skywalkers.
Yeah, right. It's because I mean, Han Solo alone is probably going to end up kicking your ass. Princess Leia is probably going to do that too, and Luke Skywalker is now I got like a Jedi Knight and all that. It's not going to work out for you, dude. Don't try. Rocky style Grogu training montage, right?
Wasn't that in Gremlins too, or the Rambo, right?
Yeah.
But like the Rocky version where he's doing the running.
Yeah. And then after he trains, he's like, you know what? I miss my daddy. I'm gonna go. Bye. He's all, hey, watch Paper Moon. It'll help you cope.
What if he's watching Paper Moon? Like like I guess I get it's a long time ago, far away, but so was 1973. So I mean, it's possible.
What if it opens up and it's like a paper Death Star, and it's like that's no moon. It's paper.
Or he folds. Remember you used to fold those papers into little notes. Like he makes a little origami. Moon and looks at it, and like. Hits you on the head with the if you know what you're looking at, you're like, that's a reference.
Josh Sickles says, I wonder if Boba goes after Luke in Book of Boba, so Grogu is in danger, so Luke gives him back to Mando. That would make sense why Grogu and Mando would be together in Book of Boba. Yeah, that is a nice bit of thinking. I would dig that if that's what happened. I just feel like that visual effect was so rocky. Like I don't see them sustaining that for episodes or for like a long period of time, like that deep fake kind of technology that they used, or however they did it. it wasn't so on. Like I think the scenes worked. Like I said, I don't think the visual effect worked. And so I know that, I mean, they have to be more critical of it than we are, or I am. And I don't,
well,
I mean, yeah, I mean, well, I don't know. Like it depends on how you evaluate them. Like, do you think if it looks like crap and people are like, it's great, then they go, that's good enough for us? Or do they go, yeah, but some people like anything and it needs
or
to be
they
better.
just recast them and then just go, hey, look, we did that as a tribute to Mark, and we thought that the first scene of our new look Skywalker should be, more in tune with the Luke that you remember, but moving forward, we're going to be doing this. And then Hamill just goes and does a PR tour and goes, look, I enjoy pasta.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want to do it.
And I honestly think that if it was by design that way, genius. Because in the end, when they do recast Luke, and they will eventually, they have to someday, and because we're going to want more Luke stories, everybody's going to want them, and they're going to want to do it. When they do that, if they didn't do it this way, then people would say, why didn't you just do that? And so by doing it this way and showing this is what it looks like when we do that right now on a Disney Plus TV budget, I think there's some positivity in that, so to speak.
Yeah, whenever they recast Luke, and they will, I agree with you, eventually they will, just because of the amount of stories there are to tell and toys. They're not gonna drop it on you as a surprise final episode on season 2. You're gonna see it a million miles. They're gonna have a giant PR tour, especially. I mean, like they even, to an extent, they didn't do that enough with Solo, I think.
Yeah.
Like they kind of tried to play it like, no, it's the character just younger, and that didn't work so well. So I imagine the next time you're just gonna get a big push.
Yeah, I hope so. Sometimes what they decide to do and not do blows my mind.
Or I'm completely wrong. Well, it's possible.
So Nike Hike says, do we have the slightest idea what the Book of Boba will be about? We don't. And it's going into production covertly as Mando at first, and then the pandemic starting up just cut off all that, like all the socialization that goes down that lets anyone figure out what that was about or what it was. So no, we don't really have everything that we have is an assumption at this point. And it's just based off of that little bookend. And the bookend was filmed before they made the show. Not saying that the bookend isn't true or going to hold up, but the bookend is a promise, I think, of the intention. The show is going to be the show. So it's like, you know what I mean? The show things may have changed with the intent and the parameters of the project. So I don't know what to expect.
Do we know who's doing the music for the Book of Boba? Like, has anyone been announced, or has it been rumored who's doing?
Nope. I'm assuming it's what's his name, Gorson?
The from Mando and Creed and Black Panther.
Yeah, and he did that stuff with Lando, that music with Lando. Wasn't he like the music on? Didn't he do like This Is America with Donald Glover?
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. I was like, Lando.
I'm doing that. I'm doing that thing where real people are just called by their characters.
Hey, I mean, I sometimes I just, when you call an actor, like, yeah, you do call the actor Superman, Christopher Reeve, so it does happen. I get you.
I tried to show that to my kids yesterday.
Superman?
Yeah, the original.
It was too slow for them.
It was mostly too slow. Like they would get really interested, and then that movie has too much coverage of the same like event. Like when Krypton's blowing up, it blows up for like 20 minutes. Like it just keeps blowing up and blowing up.
You watched the newer re-release?
Yeah, the 4K UHD one.
That's extended.
Okay.
It wasn't that long in the original release.
I didn't think so.
Yeah, they extended out you just see them falling to their deaths for quite a while.
Yeah.
Whoa.
But I had an observation that I had years ago, and then I totally forgot about, and I haven't heard about since. Or I don't think so anyway. I haven't heard anybody talking about it. Is there's this huge parallel between Clark Kent, Kal-El's Superman, being dropped off on this farm with an old curmudgeon who's pretty nice. He was like a great guy, really, but as a curmudgeon, and a nice mom to become a farmer, and then leaves the farm to embrace their actual power that they were forced to suppress. Like Luke Skywalker and Superman, their backstory is just, it's like mirrored, or it's paralleled, I should say.
Well, Lucas made no, I mean, I can't remember the exact quote or where it was, but I do remember, like, in that autobiography, they get into the guy that wrote the Henson one too. Lucas's fan of Jack Kirby and Darkseid, you know, and like Doctor Doom is like your template for Vader, you know, in a lot of ways. That he's scarred underneath, but even the name Darkseid, Jack Kirby's Fourth World, all that stuff pre-existed. There was one specific comic where I'll have to dig it back up. It's just popped in my head now, where he literally pulled I mean, I know Stormtroopers are from Nazis, but the idea that we know them as space commandos, he pulled that from something specifically. So there's a lot of pulp. Yeah, there's a lot of comic book. It just popped back in my head, so I'll write that down and get back to that later. But, yeah.
Right. Yeah. But anyways, my kids wouldn't go with it. It was weird.
Well, you were making the comment the other day about how, like, you know, was it you? I'm going to assume it was you.
I don't know.
That Lucas was pulling... Yes. That Lucas was pulling from things that were 30, 40 years old when Star Wars came out. So that means if you made a new Star Wars now and you're pulling from 30 or 40 things 30 or 40 years ago, you're pulling from Star Wars.
Yeah.
And like, how does that in the realm of, you know, like the internet police or whatever going, oh, you stole that from this or you took that from that. It's like how does that work out in modern day? You know, where that was an interesting, I call it the Mobius loop of the internet, where they like to find some point where they go, look, see, we got you, we figured out your whole trick, and it just loops back around to like, but you know, people should have their influences and you should totally be original, never be original, artists steal from everything. I know where you got your stuff. Like, it just keeps circling back around this little loop of like, I gotchas.
Yeah. I was talking about that too with Lucas and like Dinotopia, where in that case he was doing what he had always done, but he was literally pulling from something that hadn't really had its heyday yet. And it's like, whoa, is that right? Because, and I think the difference is when something is so big, it is owned by the culture, then it becomes okay to be inspired by it. When it's your generation's pop culture mythology, it becomes okay to start pulling from that stuff. When it's not, that's not the case, and it's some obscure little book about dinosaurs that, you know, it probably wasn't obscure, but it was, you know, it hadn't become a film yet. Most people didn't know what Dinotopia was, and you start pulling from that heavily, it kind of hits a different nerve. I think that's kind of how it's. I think that's like the vibe. It's like, yeah, do I think Lucas is cheap for stealing aspects of Doctor Doom for Darth Vader? Absolutely not. But was it maybe a bit wrong to mix dinosaurs and like Roman architecture and set it, like, you know what I mean, like in a different world? And it's like, you're like, yeah, you know, if he was just kind of taking the one thing and doing it Star Wars, but he actually put the dinosaurs in there too. Like the Gungans like literally riding on fucking dinosaurs, and you're like, right. Oh man, like that's, you know.
Which, if you think about it, they're kind of dinosaur-y. Which one's the pet? It's the classic Goofy versus Pluto argument, right? With just Goofy's a dog and Pluto's a dog. Where does it stop? Like, why is Pluto on 4 legs but Goofy's on 2?
Yeah. That's where you just go, you know what? I'm not thinking about this. Jonathan says, Bo-Katan, I like what he says right here, I think. Bo-Katan defected from Death Watch. However, Din Djarin was saved by Death Watch. That Mandalorian character from season 1 should turn up in season 3. So what I like about what you're saying here, Jonathan, is it does set them up to have conflict right there alone from that. Like, that could be the conflict, is that it she knows what Death Watch is. She's seen what they've done, and he sees Death Watch as this thing that pulled me out of a hole when my parents got blown up. And what's going to happen, like, it might be easy for him when you don't see, when he doesn't see any of his old cult member friends. They kind of like dispersed, and a lot of them died, and we don't know where. But when some show back up, that's when I think the friction is going to actually be that's when he's going to be tested. Of where do your loyalties fall, and what kind of vision do you have for the future of all of this? Because when you get down to it, when he's just being a bounty hunter, he's not being tested at all. He's just going out there using his powers for gain, to live and get by. And now for the first time, the Mandalorians were so suppressed that they really didn't have to really talk about the future very much. It was survival now, keeping everything together now. And if they go back to Mandalore and then he's there, he's essentially, when you get down to it, their placed guy. Like if Death Watch wanted to get someone one step away from controlling, they want that planet back and they want to control it, that dude has the sword now. Like, in a weird way, like, they're one move away from checkmate. So I see that pressure coming into the story, and I think Jonathan's hitting on a nerve there.
A thought came to mind was the original script for Adventures of Starkiller, Star Wars. It all pretty much took place on Alderaan as one planet, in the way that the Hidden Fortress, they moved around Japan through all these different adventures, and then kind of ended up right back where they started at the end. And in the Starkiller script, the only time they get off planet is at the very end, when they attack. The moon is coming to Alderaan, and then they go to attack the moon. Mm-hmm. And it would be interesting maybe to see, instead of a bunch of different locations like in the previous 2 seasons of Mandalorian, where he's going around it planet to planet, if they spend maybe half or even the entire series, whatever, but if they spend the bulk of it on just Mandalore to give you a good geography of that planet, like, that would be interesting, because Alderaan in the script wasn't a single biome planet in the way that we know. It had the jungles, the Endor bits. It had the desert plains. It was a very different scenario from that standpoint, and that would make Mandalore stand out versus just being a one biome planet with a couple techno cities that all kind of look like special edition cities,
Yeah, see, they've are in the Clone Wars cartoon, they've set up what those places like are. They've established it, and like one place on Concord, I believe it's Concord, it's like the whole planet's devastated, and there's like a big like Jetson style bubble over it, and there's it's like the place where you can live. And then another one of the main cities, everything's like big skyscrapers that look like Boba Fett's armor. Like, you can see like his chest stuff, like the the armor, like the Mandalorian like armor pieces, like how the chest pieces go. Right. All this interesting architectural work where they just took the Boba Fett costume or Jango's really, and kind of like made all of the buildings look like it's from the same culture kind of thing. But I have to imagine by this point that place is pretty messed up. Like, after the Clone Wars,
it could look like
imperialism.
I'm not going to make fun of the situation, but like Syria before and after kind of situation, right?
Exactly. No, I think that's fair. And at the same time, we don't really totally know really where all that washed out. We have a couple of like ideas, like we see where it's going in Rebels. In Star Wars Rebels, you kind of get the vibe, and then but we also have Sabine with Ahsoka at the end of Rebels in the which is like the after portion of it, which makes it sound like things got okay there to some degree, but I'm guessing not.
Well, the reason why I bring it up is I get that happened there, but the majority of people who are going to see this, or like myself, had never watched that, so I'm going to watch it. And I just think that within the context of the series, if the story isn't the need for Mando to be with Grogu, Mando, that isn't our emotional core. We have to feel why this planet matters. And it can't just be, well, because we come from there. Like, that's not going to resonate with audiences, you know? Like, it's going to resonate with fans who are familiar. But the other 15 million Disney Plus subscribers are like, what is this place? Like, why do I care? You know, so I just bring it up from, like, when you show people how, like, this place is messed up, and then you're like, I'm from here. Who doesn't want to clean up their own town, right? That's every, like, Batman Gotham City story there is. It's like, show how the place is messed up, show the complexities of it, and, you know, you got two different viewpoints on how that should go down, especially when, like, Mando.
Yeah, Mando.
I know, man. It's a weird name for me. When Mando's like, I don't want this responsibility, you know, he's rejecting the call kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give it to you. And then if she's like, yeah, your whole surrogate family is a bunch of, I mean, they're called Death Watch. They're a bunch of Hellraisers. And then he's like, what do you mean the people who saved me are hell? Like, that is a great emotional core there, you know? Like, that's a conflicting viewpoint that you can get both sides. Like, you're not, you know, you're not really against either one. That's a more complex scenario.
I mean, and on top of that, the idea that you don't take your helmet off is stupid. I mean,
she could be like, it's stupid. Like, we eat, you know, like, you eat the beans under the helmet. Like,
I eat soup through a straw so you can't see my face. Like, stupid. I get where they're going with it, though. I mean, you know, it's just so unrealistic in a certain way. Like, it's
like we fly around with jetpacks, we could kill ourselves in an instant. Always be wearing a helmet.
Aaron says that he had the audio cassette of Dark Empire when Billy D voiced Lando. That's awesome.
That's great.
Mark Hamilton, ironically, Bo-Katan then laughs at Din for being a fundy. Yeah.
What's a fundy?
Like a fundamentalist.
Oh, okay. I'm unfamiliar. Look, I'm old. Write that down. Fundy.
If you read enough political stuff, you'll start getting all of these little words thrown around all the time.
No one will remember in 6 months. It'll be different. Yeah. Like when I was a kid, you know, like you'd say something. I mean, we use rad and now, but like no one uses tubular.
Yeah.
You know, no one uses those kinds of words.
Let me ask you this: Did anyone ever use tubular except for in high C commercials?
Totally tubular. I think when the Turtles came back out, because it's all 60s stuff, right? It's like surf humor.
Dale says even Lux Bonteri might have forgiven her. Yeah, I wanted to see more about Lux and Ahsoka in the series in general. And, you know, just because they had a flirtation briefly doesn't mean that he needs to define Ahsoka's life or anything like that. But I did for a while wonder back in the day, maybe Ahsoka, after not being a Jedi, maybe she finds Lux and then, you know, they end up hanging out and chilling. But apparently not. Michael Freeman, is that speculation or are you telling us these as facts?
Oh, that whole Solos and Boba thing.
Yeah. Because Mr. Hamilton's point is that he wants Alden Ehrenreich back in as Han Solo in Book of Boba Fett.
Quickly, how that changed.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like I know, like it took 10 years almost for the prequels to be like, we do want Ewan McGregor back.
Yeah,
and it's like Solo. It sort of took like 10 years of pandy. Look, I know a word.
Yeah, there you go.
Hundy, pandy, whatever, fundy. Mandy, I guess. But yeah, I mean, like quickly how that happened. I wasn't against them. I just feel like they kind of don't have a choice if they cast another Solo. Like it's just another. They'll either cast another Solo 20 years from now and not do it remotely soon, you know, when people forget about it, or they'll roll right into this. What has he been up to since Solo? I haven't seen him. I haven't
been following him, but I haven't seen much.
Like I was like, it's one of those things where in a multiverse scenario, he did Cats right after that too, and it ended his career, right? Like, he got the worst agent since Emil Hirsch, right? Yeah, and he's like, no more, and you put the buttholes, you put buttholes on it.
Yeah, no, it's too bad because he didn't, I don't think he did anything wrong. I don't think he failed that movie.
No.
And I have a feeling I've never really bought into the Ace Ventura rumor. Like it was like Ace Ventura. I think Han Solo really being sarcastic though can come off like an Ace Ventura performance. If you were trying to do a Han Solo, hey, it's me, and you're not Harrison Ford, it really could come off accidentally in that way though, for what it's worth. But Nike says, "Isn't it odd that we have gotten the full cast list of Kenobi, but we don't have the slightest clue about the talent involved in Book of Boba?" Yeah, I mean, I think that they just got it so on the download and they just decided to keep it that way. But there's also a chance that there's not that many. Well, I think that's probably foolish to think that too. But maybe it's not that big of a cast, or maybe the cast are mostly like Gamorrean guards and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Maybe he's like fighting like all kinds of just like stuff that's more like creature suit based and stuff. And so you don't have such a big, name draw from it. But at the same time, with Kenobi, where it was filming and like how they were using the volume and stuff, you can see the actors every day walking out through like to get from one place from dressing to the set. They were getting pictures of it.
Rodriguez has his production studio. Is it in Austin?
I'm not sure. Probably though.
He has his own
like
little thing. I wonder if all of it's being done in LA, or if he did anything like if they did it outside, like in a Texas scenario where it's just kind of away from, like the typical area. Like it's kind of like where his situation would be more. I wonder.
Yeah, there were a couple like there was a video of an actual on location set for Kenobi that was nowhere. It was like, I want to say it was in Arizona, but I'm not positive. And this is from memory, and I don't really remember it that well. And there was like this other video that was going around that I was sent that was like stormtroopers walking like through a canyon, and they were filming them. And then these hikers are filming their own video, and like they walk right through it. They're like, "Oh shit, the stormtroopers!"
Well, that happened to my ex's family in '82 because they went out. They used to go out to Yuma or in Fortuna to do dirt bike riding.
Yeah.
So in high school, they're like, "Oh yeah, here's all the photos," and they had all the photos of the Jabba sail barge and everything that they took when they were out there, and they were just shooting that. So they just stumbled upon Star Wars while they're out there dirt bike riding in the '80s. It happens.
That's the dream right there. There was a documentary, kind of a documentary, about some people who went down there and were filming it back then, and they posted like I don't think it has sound from memory, but it's just like 15 minutes of just like footage of them filming like everything going on at the time back then. It was really cool to see it. I wonder if that's still around. All hands on deck. I heard Erin Kellyman say she's heard nothing about a Solo sequel of any kind. Yeah, and I'm not trying to pretend to be anything at all. I will say that I have never heard of anything about a Solo sequel, and I always felt like, for the most part, when that stuff went around, it was being taken, it was being taken out of context. Like, there's going to be a character who does X, Y, and Z. They were in Solo, therefore it means this. Or we're thinking, or wouldn't it be cool to use Kira again? It means they're doing Solo. I don't think so. And my take has always been that they won't drop those threads. They will eventually pick them up once people miss it enough that a real hype gets around, like righting a wrong. They're bringing back Firefly, that kind of vibe almost. And I think that they won't call it Solo 2. They won't call it Solo. They will simply bring in the things from Solo and bring those stories back.
Well, there is a time limit though, isn't there? Like there's only so long before the actors age through A New Hope, right?
Yeah. Yeah, well, like they do have, I mean, if they wanted to use Alden Ehrenreich, they could bring him in. They could bring him in and have him be Han Solo post Return of the Jedi. They can just say this is our Han Solo now, and Kira would be probably aging if they wait long enough.
I'm assuming it would take place before A New Hope for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know why. It could be Shadows of the Empire. Will be this new Solo sequel. So,
right.
Yeah, I got you. And now Iron Reich's just frozen.
Just frozen.
He's just a otter pop.
Thank you for the support, Sala, Alexander, Esquire, Theodore Logan. Sorry, I love Bill and Ted. Any updates on decanonization of the sequels via the Worlds Between Worlds, and what about Acolyte, all female or male and female Sith? So no, like on that kind of stuff, I don't believe that will ever happen. I think, and whether your viewpoint is that the sequels were the best thing, just okay, good enough, horrible, whatever it is, I think that they will never undo it. By undoing anything, they essentially cut down on the ability to capitalize on something that they've already invested in, that already exists. And because it takes place where it takes place, like 7, 8, 9, well, Carrie Fisher's not with us now. So there's no redo there. There's no like redoing that with Carrie Fisher. And Harrison Ford isn't going to come back. And Prince, you know what I mean? And Luke Skywalker, he's pretty over it right now. I don't think he really would want to be Luke Skywalker. Mark Hamill. And so like that was it. That was the story. That's how that went down. And so on doing it, would it make sense for them? What does make sense is just to go forward. Just to keep moving forward, and then people will eventually accept whatever is for what it is. Now, the World Between Worlds stuff, we don't actually know anything credible on that yet. We don't know anything that like about what that power is actually going to be, how it's going to be used. The only thing we know at this point is that Ahsoka backing of the poster really does imply that is the vibe, and that they're probably going to be trying to find Ezra, and maybe in that maybe they spring Ezra and Thrawn loose, and maybe that's all that it is. Maybe she simply goes in there, somehow, maybe even I'm speculating, but like in one episode gets in there and springs them from it, but maybe now they have the equivalent of forbidden knowledge, if you will.
Thrawn confirmed.
Thrawn
confirmed.
Making Star Wars says, but maybe, and then what they bring out of there is what is the issue, is for the story. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe Thrawn knows how to bring Palpatine back. Or maybe Thrawn knows what Palpatine needs to do, for instance. I'm speculating. So it's really hard to say. But yeah, they will never, I don't believe they will ever undo what they've done. And I don't believe that it would ever especially happen while the people who made it are still controlling the company and working there. And that's not even just Kathleen Kennedy. That's like everybody down to the dude who writes like a visual dictionary or something. You know what I mean? Like they're not gonna go, you know what? I want to really undo the last like 10 years of my work and my life's work or whatever. Like they won't do it.
Can I bring up 2 points on that?
Yeah.
One, here's just a practical thing that you can use in life, folks. When a company spends hundreds of millions of dollars building 2 theme parks based around an entire idea, like Rise of the Resistance and giant starships and, like the whole thing, they're not just going to chuck it. They're just not. They're not going to chuck it. That's why, you didn't, like, it's one thing when you modify an existing ride, say like Pirates of the Caribbean with the Johnny Depp, that you can pull the Johnny Depp puppet out. But they built the Guardian, the Galaxy's Edge. I always get that confused. The Galaxy's Edge area around the idea of the sequels. Like, that's it. It specifically doesn't have Vader walking around with the stormtroopers. It specifically doesn't have, although I would love to see a Terrence Stamp Chancellor Valorum walk around so we could just chastise him all day. You don't see that. So like, there's a reason like to undo that there's a bunch. How do I say this? Imagine if they were like, yeah, it's a good example. Like another thing from Disney, like that thing, all that stuff you bought at a theme park, none of it counts anymore. You know, like you would get real pissed off. And the theme parks, I know it's tough to imagine now because of COVID and oh, damn, I said the word, you know. But it's hard to imagine now, but they really fuel a lot of Disney's funds, man, and have consistently. Matter of fact, the park saved Disney in the 70s and the 80s when that movie department was defunct, hence of defunct land, you know. Like,
right.
So,
well, I think a model that we could look at too to answer this question even further is look at the Clone Wars. When you had the Star Wars prequels, which were not media darlings, to say the least, you ended up having the Clone Wars come in, and the Clone Wars started to fill in all of the potholes that the prequels left or made, so to speak. And they even did some stuff like, let's change the dynamic between Anakin and Obi-Wan in this series. And we don't think about that today. We see it as a complex dynamic with two sides, you know what I mean, or different moods, if you will.
War.
And but like in the Clone Wars, like they're a little bit more jokey and friendly, and they have more of a teases. They tease each other a bit more, but it's, you know. But anyways, when you put it together, it holistically changes the picture. And so I think that that's kind of the project is you don't burn the house down. You start adding new coats of paint to it.
Unless it's the EU, and then you say, no, we're going to make a bunch of new fake stuff that don't really count. That's my whole thing. I don't care that they deleted the EU. I'm not one of those 40-year-olds who's like, they delete not my EU.
Right.
It's that they went and said, now this is going to be canon. So we're going to take all the characters you knew and their storylines and reintroduce them. And then within a year or two, it's definitely not canon, but we can't admit that. So now we're going to create a new canon, or what I like to call the Shadows of the Empire 2.0, the story without a movie, the High Republic, where see, now we can tell a bunch of stories. This is definitely canon until they make a movie in the High Republic that don't match up and don't fit right. And then it's going to be like, well, the movies are top tier. The books are second. And that's that thing. It's like, I mean, it's funny when they're like, well, they killed Chewie in the EU, so they had to delete it. And I'm just like, just bring them back. Palpatine came back as a Luke had a clone. I mean, you know, like Leia had force powers. I mean, it was ridiculous, like their rationale. And I'm like, the real reason is they had to start producing the Star Wars comics, and they didn't want to like republish Dark Horse's material. I'm going to tell you right now, like that's it. Yeah. It's those comic books. They wanted their own fresh Star Wars #1 Marvel comic book series. And they wanted to be clean, and they don't have to tie into anything that came from another publisher, and maybe the royalties that came with it. And the more I think about that, and I can't prove it, but you know how like those royalty issues came out over the past year for some of the writings for like Splinters in the Mind's Eye.
Alan Dean Foster was getting screwed.
I wonder if that was that whole like this is our new canon was because they didn't want to have to deal with possibly owing royalties to anyone who worked at Dark Horse or anything like that. So. Yeah, I know it's a little bit of a tangent, but I think it definitely ties into why they sometimes delete and why they don't. Lucasfilm made the Clone Wars. They own all those storylines. They're not deleting them. Disney owns all those storylines they made on the sequels. They're not deleting them. You know?
Yeah. I also think that when we get into issues in books today, in the digital world, all they literally have to do, like I said, is just go into the book, fix it, release it as an updated ebook, not even spend $1 on publishing it, and then go, that the canon one is the 2022 ebook version. Then it's fixed, you know, because errors are going to happen, and that's mostly what we have today, though, or where errors happen. Productions, they went and remade part of Rogue One, and then you know how somebody died changed, and it's always small things, but I think they're going to make it work, though. I just don't know if people are going to like how they make it work in the big picture, but I think it's going to be better than just erasing the whole thing. And the Star Wars Expanded Universe too. Other thing that to remember about that was it started like with Bantam or something like that, and then went over to another company. Bantam.
Bantam Press.
Bantam. I think I've been saying Bantam since I was like
Ben 10. It's fine.
No,
I say Wakeham, and people call Wackham.
Yeah. So, anyways, like they were even dealing with changes there. You know what I mean? Like it was the foundations of it were weak and all over the place, and the hands were tied on those stories for years because of places they couldn't go, things that they couldn't do. So
the EU wasn't all perfect. I submit to you The Courtship of Princess Leia. Go read it.
Yeah.
I mean, beautiful Drew Struzan covers.
Well, I mean, like True Set Back era, like.
Right.
I read that book and I'm like, is this V? There's alien, there's lizard men. I was like, what is this? I don't know. Like, although it wasn't for me.
I actually really enjoyed AC Crispin's Han Solo trilogy. I know some people give it flack now, but story wise, I'm like, that's kind of like in my head canon. That's sort of the Solo prequel I sort of follow, just in terms of the storyline and everything.
Yeah.
And Struzan drew his version of Kira, the love interest, as Karen Allen. So you get that Indy vibe on the covers. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's one of the things I wish that if they would pull more out of is the Struzan books, like all of those covers that don't necessarily apply to a lot of things now. Like our books, I wish they would rework those into new covers.
Why doesn't Lucasfilm just put out a Struzan Lucasfilm and all the things he did for all the indie stuff? He did the stuff. Did he do the stuff for the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles? I know he did a bunch of commemorative plates.
He did. I know. I remember him mostly doing Ford. I wouldn't be surprised if he did something for Young Indy though, but I don't remember. I mean, at this point, Santa's telling me that he also did the music for Trolls World Tour.
Drew Struzan did?
No, he's talking about something else.
Okay.
But let's just say that Santa told us Drew Struzan did the music for Trolls World Tour. let's just
he did it all. He did it all a cappella too. You know, Trolls.
Carl says that Luke's deepfake in Mando was definitely weird looking. Was Tarkin the best CGI human face in Star Wars so far? I think so. I think the Leia was a little bit weird too. You know how it was a bit strange. I like I said, I so far love the scenes that the CGI humans are in, but the execution is not quite caught up to pace. I saw Rogue One in a really bad theater one time when it was almost out of theaters, and it didn't look good. Tarkin looked great. That's what was funny about it was if we lived in the VHS era, if you put your Rogue One on the VHS and watch it, you're like, there's Peter Cushing. He's back, baby.
The noise helps. I on my artwork these days, I have a series of custom textures that I use that I put over whatever I do, and then I'll turn the amount down depending on a customer's preference. Yeah. But that noise, that it's not film grain, it's like that film grain blends a lot of stuff together, you know, in a way that, and I get on HDTVs, you don't want the snow, but there is a way to do it that doesn't involve giant snow on your screen that can blend those effects better. I think the push towards like the video gameization, the game of effects in movies where we want everything at 8000K and super sharp with no noise does not make the effects look better. They end up looking more like the Hobbit movies where it just looks like some elaborate TV film. You need the noise to kind of like bind it all together, to the lack of a better explanation.
Yeah, like I saw Star Tours was filmed on the same quality as the Hobbit. And that Star Wars, it looks like you're watching a sports game, a football game, like the way that the ultra frame rate on it and stuff like that. It doesn't really do any favors for it. But yeah, let me see what's going on. Sala says, okay, so that's when Sala first asked it. Josh says, I'd love to know if Din knows about Maul. Maul should have been around when Din was younger, and maybe he thinks highly of him. it'd be interesting to have Bo-Katan tell Din about Maul and Satine. Yeah, that's the whole thing is like talking about Maul becomes kind of a problem because they haven't really resolved his criminal backstory yet, and we do have him like in Rebels, but the era before that where we find out he's Kira's boss hasn't really been fleshed out too much, and so
Book of
I'm
Boba
not.
Fett, everything's going in there,
right? I mean, yeah. We may even learn. I mean, in a weird way, we may learn at some point that Maul was super responsible for how that cult turned out. I mean, it's totally possible. So, any idea who might be cast as Thrawn? I thought a rumor was going around about Robert Downey Jr. was up for the role, and many believed it was Thrawn. I do not know about that, and I don't believe it. I don't know anything about that though. I don't believe it. There was another rumor that Mads Mikkelsen's brother was up for it, who was I think maybe the voice of him in Rebels.
Boyd Nicholson.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't really buy the. Okay, Santa says, I'm pretty sure the Robert Downey Jr. rumor was debunked, and yeah, that doesn't. Yeah, I love that guy, but enough with him in these kind of movies. I'm okay with letting that guy have a break. Laugh out loud decanonization of the sequels is hilarious. Yeah, I don't think that that's going to ever happen because it's like those movies still make money. Like you would be like throwing away, millions and millions of profits for in the future by debasing them and making them little side things. It makes sense just to, if they end up being looked at as pieces of trash in 5 years or 10 years, just keep moving forward. And you can, like I said, you can never bring back Hamill, Ford, and Fisher together again. You can't do it. And that alone, I think, is the saving grace of the films, whatever the quality is that you get to see them on screen together.
Again. I'll say too, again, I've made the reference in the past, but the X-Men films are a great example of this as well, in that X-Men 3 was a colossal step downward from X-Men 2. Like, yeah. It was people walked out the theater when I was in it, and I was like, really? I was shocked. And people were laughing at it. And then, they just stuck with it. And then at the end of Days of Future Past, you see him reunite with that cast, and no one was like, nah, they ruined it 2 movies ago. Like, that didn't happen. So people, the nostalgia, and the kids who love the sequels, the kids in the theater who watched them when they were 5 and now they're 10 or 11, like, they're not here on this podcast, other than your children, are not here on this podcast listening to this or on the YouTube podcast getting all irate about what they wanted from it. They just knew that there were some Star Wars movies that they loved. Yeah. And then as they get older, they're going to go, I love that Reylo romance and this happened and that happened. And the way that I love the minecart sequence from Temple of Doom. Yeah. Because I watched it so many freaking times, because of pay-per-view.
Right.
And that opening song, I wonder too, by the way, to sneak a little indie discussion in here.
Yeah.
Is what deal did pay-per-view have with Spielberg or Paramount because when they were promoting Temple of Doom on pay-per-view, they would play the whole opening song of Kate Capshaw singing.
Oh, really?
It would play all the way through and the very only other movie that did that was when Little Shop of Horrors came out. They played one of the whole like Steve Martin dentist songs or something.
Yeah.
And so like I just wonder, I'm like, wow, they really gave Kate Capshaw that push, But yeah, those the fans of that stuff are not here complaining. They love those movies. They're just off playing Fortnite right now.
Yeah, right. Actually, I wanted to hit on 2 things that I forgot to hit on earlier in the show before I forget. The first is that this really sad piece of news is that J.W. Rinzler is coming to the end of his life, and his daughter, I think it's his daughter, forgive me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, it's his daughter.
But it says that my father, J.W. Rinzler, diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, is making end-of-life plans. Many people have sent thoughts, prayers, and have asked if they can help. So I am sharing our GoFundMe to help with his medical expenses. Thank you again. And like that guy is just like a legend, I mean, his work that he did on the Making of Star Wars books was just stellar. And even at the end of his tenure at Lucasfilm, when they wanted him to become a PR mouthpiece for things, he said no. I'm not interested in becoming a PR dude. He even had a day where he posted a bunch of like true like prequel stuff that was like whoa, and he deleted it. But
oh really?
Yeah, where he talks about like the reels. Yeah, I have it somewhere, I think. But it's it's all fat. It was a fascinating dude. He did like stellar work. His making of Star Wars books are just the best, and it's so screwed that he's dying. So
is the character in Tron Legacy named after him?
That is correct. Yeah. That is correct. When they were writing Tron Legacy, they have them making a Star Wars book, and they saw the name there, and they're like, let's call him Rinzler. And that's how that happened. Yeah. And so, and I was fortunate enough to talk to him a few times throughout the years, and he was always a cool dude, always like super nice. And, he was the one who told us that Boba lived on a Reddit AMA. He's like, according to George, Boba's alive. That's his canon. So, yeah, but I mean, that is just so crappy. So if you, if you're not in a bad place right now and you want to help out the family, that would be really cool, because he was a nice dude who did great work. And then the other thing I wanted to touch on, if I can do this right, I'm 1 for 1 right now. Well, actually, I messed up this. There was no sound earlier, so we'll see how this goes. But this is a picture of the stuntman from the Boyd Holbrook's character from the new Indiana Jones movie, and that's the stuntman. Now, this is a conversation that I was thinking about, like, whoa, we should be having this conversation every day to some extent. And that's that when you look at the motorcycle, you can see it says, it's the New York Police Department motorcycle. So this guy could be a cop. This guy doesn't have to be Mutt. He could just simply be a cop who's been, getting in the mix with Indy this whole time, like either as an ally or as somebody trying to stop him. Indy rides a black horse that looks a lot like his one in The Last Crusade to me in certain ways. Probably not the same kind of horse. I don't know horses, but visually it has that same kind of vibe.
It's the Black Stallion, right? From
Black Stallion.
Coppola?
Yeah.
Right? The
Black Stallion Coppola movie.
Right.
But I was like watching videos, and I've been sent a couple of videos that I can't post, unfortunately. They said no. But where Indy is riding down the parade with him. And I was trying to look to see in those videos, and there's a bunch on Twitter if you guys just look it up. On Twitter, like I was trying to see, was there ever a moment where it looks like Boyd Holbrook's character is going after Indy? It's always like a stuntman, so it's kind of hard to say, like, where the performance lies in that stuff. But there's never like a time where it looks like he's trying to pull Indy off the horse, or he's trying to like cut him off or whatever. And in fact, Indy's on a horse and he's on a motorcycle, but realistically, it would be no contest, I would think. The motorcycle would just catch up to Indy, and that would work. At the same time, Indiana Jones action movie logic could dictate otherwise. And like, I think it's important that like Phoebe Waller-Bridge, there was that rumor that was posted on over the weekend that I covered about how she's Marcus Brody's daughter. Well, what if she's not? And so it's like, it's important, I think, that we are following and evaluating these productions as they go on, but that we don't get too attached to ideas, because that will ruin things for you. And I think that's like an important part, and the responsibility of following something in production is, I believe that Snoke was a clone of Luke Skywalker, and I was attached to that, and it didn't happen, and now I'm mad. It's like, you're ruining it for yourself. So it's like, if you're going to follow spoilers and stuff like that, you got to be able to roll with it. And that's one of the things that I'm pretty used to that, but it occurred to me, I was like, we're talking about these things based off of what we are thinking, based off of this like tangential evidence right now.
I blame myself, Jason. I'm an ideas guy. Mm-hmm. So like, I constantly go, oh, it could be this. Oh, it could be that. But I do have to, I was thinking about it today when we were bringing it up. Just want to be certain folks. I just say this would be cool. If it's not that, when I go in the theater, I don't get mad about it. You know, I don't go, you know, popcorn, throw it, you know. This isn't what I dreamt of. Mine was way better because anytime you, I mean, the other day in the chat, someone was saying the ideas that were thrown around the sequels were better than the ones executed or something. Mm-hmm. And my response to that is, all right, that's one thing to say because you know how they panned out. Everyone has ideas. Executing ideas is two other things. So if your job is now to create a new Star Wars movie and you're like, I think, like we had that discussion about maybe if Finn had been part of the Jedi and Rey did her own Skywalker thing, which were Ronin. Let's say that was something that we pitched and they did decide to roll with that. Do you know how much of the internet would hate that? They're just not my Jedi and they ruined it. You know, like this would go on forever and ever. So it's like whatever idea you think is great, even if it's the best idea in the world, maybe it won't stick. How many movies did you... I love THX 1138. That movie didn't stick when it came out. You know, like, before I was born, it didn't stick. And it didn't stick when I was a kid. It took a long time, you know?
Well, I mean, it's like if you go to the theater, right? And you're watching something that you've been anticipating. It's not going how you want. The best thing to do is to have some lighter fluid in your pocket. And just to take off all your clothes and douse yourself in it and have a lighter and say, George Lucas, George Lucas, make the movie I want or I'm going to do it.
And demonetized.
And then you'll see that it doesn't matter. That no one's going to come to save you. And you have to pay some fines for taking off your clothes in public and probably have a mental evaluation. But you'll come out of it realizing that, you know what, you just got to roll with the, if you're going to follow a movie, you either go in blind or you follow it and you roll with it. And that's the thing is like my responsibility, I think, is to try.
It's my triggered porn.
Oh no, triggered porn.
It's not cropped right. I'm going to crop it better, but it's my triggered porn.
is that like when there's like obvious like BS, I try not to engage with it. Sometimes I engage with BS because everybody does. If you're going to do this, trigger warning, Star Wars.
Warning.
It's funny. Yeah, so you know, you just gotta kind of like, you know, let things go, Anakin. You know, the point of the prequels. It's kind of funny. The point of the prequels is for Anakin. The story is being able to let go, and like we are bad at that. I mean, as humans, yes. As Star Wars fans, way bad at letting go. You know, the people's heads I live in who I don't even barely know is amazing to me. Geek Free says, World Between Worlds is 100% happening, but they can't let it be too powerful when they can change much. I think it will be like Lost. What happened. Yeah, I hope you're right, dude. Like, that's my hope too. I hope it's going to be like, I hope it's going to be like, sort of like in the fairy tale when the witch looks in the mirror and you know, the magic mirror and can see like what's up there and there's portals to there and Palpatine never cracked it, right? I mean, they kind of stopped him, but is that the second volume? Sorry, somebody asked about a second volume and I think I lost it.
Yeah, that was like the snow one. They're like, we like the snow. I'm like, there you go.
Yeah, Patrick says, goddamn, Solo movie was great.
You don't have your own volume? Sorry.
It didn't make it didn't make a bang as it should have. That and Rogue One are up there. Yeah, I'm with you. I think Solo's going to get love over time, and it was well received. Like the general reviews weren't this is crap. Like it wasn't like a flawed broken movie. It was a movie made too close to the other one and marketed just poorly. It was marketed arrogantly, just to be straight up with you. There was a certain arrogance, and that is a big problem with the that side of Star Wars, in my opinion. You know, but Geek Furious sees that the World Between Worlds is 100% going to happen, which we just talked about, and yeah, and I mean it is. I think you're right there too. I mean it's on the poster essentially, and the way that Lost handles it is the best way. It's funny. I was about to talk about this, and right after is a guy who's named the Galactic Multiverse, and I'm like, and like that's where you kind of like get into that. Like this year, Galactic Multiverses have been very in vogue. Is Star Wars going to go there? I don't know. I kind of don't think so. I kind of think that it by doing so, it allows just like for so much second guessing. Like Marvel, for instance, is so openly sci-fi that, and like there's aspects of it that just are totally cool, and because of its very nature of the comic book business rebooting itself continually, like
since the
that,
Secret Wars at Marvel specifically, like
yeah,
I mean it was built into that company before the Disney acquisition,
right,
that now it's part of 101 for comics to do that. But there was Star Wars related. The Star Trek, apparently the book continuity has been the same for the longest time, and I guess they're undoing that. They're going to a new book continuity to shake it up or something. My friend was complaining about it, and I was like, yeah, they tried that with Star Wars. I don't think they're going to do it again. You know, I think they'll just tell a new story, or like you said, they'll create just another timeline to go to and tell new stories there.
But you know, it's still, you know, it's still capitalism. Like, what do you do? Like when somebody has 500 Star Trek books in their bookshelf, and like, you know, you make new books, maybe they buy them, but at some point maybe they don't. I don't know, but you want to resell to those people, and so you know it's complicated on how you make that work without it being egregious, you know.
In a way, we've kind of seen it a little bit from modern Disney in that, remember they did those anime shorts retelling parts of the original trilogy?
Yeah,
they're like 2 minutes long, you know, and so you're seeing like Luke fight Vader, and it was super dynamic. You know, I love the animation, but people are like, that's not the way it went down. You know, that Luke is what, you know. So that in a way is a reboot without a reboot, where you can do these little bits where they retell the same story from a different point of view.
Right. You
know.
Yeah, and then Star Wars Santa is talking to Geek Furious, and he says, "I'm not so sure. The star chart in the Ahsoka logo matches the star chart in the Jedi Temple when Ezra gets his Kyber crystal. Not necessarily World Between Worlds. Maybe a map to Jedi temples."
The game show?
Jedi Temples, the game show.
Did you watch that?
No.
Huh? That is a fascinating look at what a Nickelodeon style game show would be with for kids on Star Wars. I feel like if it weren't in Pandy times, that game show should have been filmed at Disney all the time, so that people attending Disney could be contestants on the show. Interesting.
Yeah, I'm when that stuff, I'm like, hey, if it makes somebody happy, do it. But
right,
why,
I just got to see Ahmed Best. I'm like, I got to see how this goes down.
Yeah, you know what? Let Ahmed Best be Jar Jar. How about we do that? That's what I say.
He could be Mace Windu.
See, I'm saying the World Between Worlds would be used to allow for variance of the plot, but will come with hurdles, major obstacles preventing reuse or overuse. Yeah, like that's where. Like God, I don't want to talk poorly on Dave Filoni, because he's made so many things I love over the years. Most of the stuff he's made I love. I'm not sure if like Filoni and Lost style stuff comes to mind like as working for me. You know what I mean?
We got in that discussion about the Breaking Bad versus Lost style of storytelling.
Yeah.
You know, 2 episodes ago. And I will always cite on the Vince Gilligan way to tell a story versus the JJ way now. I mean, and I love Lost, but
same.
and it wasn't JJ, it was David Liminal. I get it, but it was JJ. I don't care. You know? Yeah. So
there is a sensibility there.
Yeah, it's the bad robot way of doing things, and I've seen how it plays out now between Star Trek and Star Wars, and if I have to choose, I'm going to choose the Vince Gilligan, Rian Johnson way of telling a story. Like, that's my 2 cents. You know, I'm not going to convince you, because it's just that things don't ever, that whole, we don't actually say what something is and we just be vague and you figure it out. I'm done with it, man. Like, how exciting is that? You know, to still be asking the same questions after 3 films that you had at the beginning of the first film. How does that help anything?
Yeah.
You know,
it does. Oh yeah, and by the way, Geek Furious, if you ever want to, you've written 2 good comments about the UFO episodes that we do on Saturday. If you ever want to come on and talk about responsible skepticism, by all means, it's an open invite. The Galactic Multiverse says, I love the idea of the world between worlds and want to see more of it. I don't think that they will erase the sequels, but it could could be used to enhance the story if done well. Yeah, like I said, I think it could be done to inform certain people about what's going on. It could be a way, like when you have visions in films, there's never like a way to really make that work out. Like there hasn't been a good way with Star Wars yet. Like prequels did like that black vision kind of thing, like the black sides, like, whoa, I'm seeing my wife die in childbirth.
The Padme.
Yeah. It looks kind of cool, but they, like I said, they just never really got it. Like there's never been like a really cool way of handling that. And I think that that could be a way of getting into the mystical side of things and showing us the visions, or showing us like mystical stuff where the Jedi's actually in it, and Clone Wars did a good job, like when they put Yoda on like on his little mystical journey, and like Mortis is like another way of doing it. But that stuff also confuses the hell out of people. Oh, dude, you better cover those Anakin nips, or we are getting demonetized again.
Yeah.
Oh, demonetized.
Get my Schumachers on here, buddy. Get my
there
Kilmers.
It is. Hey, microphone.
I called this one Batman and this one Robin.
Truzen did some work on Young Indy. Yeah, I think I know you're right. Like I have like a picture in my mind of Indy on the Young Indy on the horse with the actual hat that he did, but I can't place it. It might have been like on a TV guide or something. Yeah, the whole, like I said, I just don't like the idea of like variants. I love what Marvel's doing. Like I love how they're handling it. I just hope that it comes down to like seeing, like kind of like Yoda, like, you could see, like Luke sees possible futures in Empire Strikes Back. We don't see it though. And Yoda's like, yeah, you're going to see, old friends long gone and stuff like that. And then he's like, oh, Luke or Han and Leia. And then he freaks out. And then he has to go help them. And like, so when we get into like that kind of stuff, like that's where I think you could, in a way, legitimize like expanded universe stuff as being like the legend of it, like without, it could be corny. It could be corny if they don't do it right. But like, if you're right after Return of the Jedi, could you see Mara Jade in there and Luke Skywalker getting married? Yes, you could. Could a character believe that's going to happen because they see it and something like that? Yeah. And then does it go that way? No, that was a possible future based off of what the Force was predicting was a path that could be taken. And like, so with that kind of stuff in mind, I think there's a way of handling it, and then to go back to like, somebody asked about Acolyte, and I accidentally didn't talk about Acolyte very much, but with Acolyte, I think we're going to get a better foundation for the prequels and the Sith.
That's my hope.
Yeah, that's what I think it's going to amount to. It's going to like really set up that era so that we even appreciate the prequels more. It's gonna be like what the Clone Wars did for the prequels, but from the other side.
My excitement for that show, based off the whole you covering that interview that she gave with
it was
I think it was Variety or something, got me to bust out to dig my Attack of the Clones mugs out from storage. Like I couldn't believe. I'm like, I'm excited for prequel stuff again. Like I can't believe this.
Man, I would say like a good, like I really do love Attack of the Clones, but I think it's that song, Across the Stars. That song is just so good. Like I want to watch that movie because I just want to hear like constantly, like in my mind. And sometimes I do.
There's a fan. It's not a fan edit. I don't know what you would call it. This guy put together 10 years ago. It's really good. It's called The Symphony for a Saga, where he arranged all of the stuff from the prequels through the Ochi as suites that play in the order sort of which they would appear thematically. But he did it really, really well. Like to the point where he was like, okay, Rob, enough praise. I know you're out there always hyping this up, but it's like the collection of Star Wars music you'd want in a way that hasn't been done yet. And if you can find that one, if you guys are interested in that sort of thing and you own the CDs, then definitely look. It's called Star Wars Symphony Force Saga because the way he weaves like that across the stars, the Duel of Fates, and the Duel of the Heroes, kind of throughout these three sections, is the way that it's the way that you would remember the music as opposed to how it was sort of portrayed within the film.
Yeah. I really miss having John Williams scores, and that's why other thing about Indiana Jones that I'm excited for.
It's his last score, right?
Yeah, has that been confirmed that it's his last? I mean, is he said like that's it, and I'm retiring?
I reread the original Variety drop on that because I was gonna ask you, and then I'm like, before I ask Jason who's scoring Indy 5, let me go back, and I'm like, of course. I remember the John Williams thing, but Variety or Deadline broke it, and it was in there. That'll be like his last deal.
Yeah. Yeah, he deserves to be able to retire now. I mean, he's given us 80 years. He's been doing that stuff more than most of us have been alive put together. Some of us, anyways. I just finished the first 3 Thrawn books under the new canon. Love all 3 of them. I have Thrawn Ascendancy one's question up to listen to next. Yeah, I actually didn't get to finish those. I need to get back to those. Mr. Hamilton says, Star Wars could Lucasfilm Limited ever do a Rise of Skywalker special edition to fix and improve some of the missed opportunities? For example, the fan film of the ending with all the Force ghosts united against Palps. I mean, anything is possible, but I feel like that special edition kind of vibe it's from the auteur school of thinking for directors, and that was JJ's movie. That was what he wanted to make. So we have that. That's one strike against it. Does Disney want to look back, or do they want to continually look forward? I think they want to continually look forward about what's next. Like, do they want to go drop millions of dollars into sprucing up that joint when they could just go make a new film that might connect even better or whatever? So yeah, but so far we haven't seen Disney have any inclination to go back and add anything to the movies. I don't think there's been a change yet. If there has, I can't think of one off the top of my head.
If there was, for me, it would just be the way they set up Han's death on that catwalk, like that, just the geography of that with no rails, and it was just too set. I don't know, like there has to be a way visually you could take the same footage, but it is what it is. I just think I'm with you. Like the vibe I got from Lucasfilm, it was funny watching them go from 2012 2015 was like they do not want any jokey Star Wars. So like at the time, all of the Star Wars shirts were like Vader on like a roller coaster with stormtroopers, and they were like, we don't want no jokes. It's not funny anymore. It's ruining. It's making fun of Star Wars. We want it serious. That was the big thing they set down. And 2, they did not want to bring up anything regarding the sequels or the idea of that 1997 through 2005 mentality of Star Wars,
right.
That just, they didn't say it, but they said it. I don't know how to articulate that better than that. And I don't think that mindset has changed in that, like when they were like, you haven't seen any straight comedy. Even the movie I thought would be a comedy would have been Solo. Just given that American Graffiti is a comedy, folks. It's not Ace Ventura. It's a comedy. It's funny. It has a heart. It has a heart. But I thought Solo would have been more like somewhere between American Graffiti and Smokey and the Bandit. And it's like this like anti-war film, like in a way. Like it's super, the tone is so not what I expected. I just think like that hasn't changed.
Yeah, if I was going to be overly critical on Solo, it's that like it wants to set him up in this anti-war, almost like he's one of the guys from Easy Rider because of X, Y, and Z. But then at the same time, I kind of feel like it did it very bubblegum. At the same time, it's like should it have even gone down that road if it wasn't going to necessarily commit? And it doesn't really seem to really play into anything later on. Like Indiana Jones and Han Solo, the Harrison Ford thing, they just kind of get like, they fall in love with the wrong people, or they get mixed up with the wrong people, and then they are innately good but seedy, and then they get their heart broken. That's kind of like how it works every time with them. But why is he that way? The film doesn't really get into that, and it drops some moments of it where he's like, oh yeah, like basically says that he and his dad weren't that close, and his dad worked on starships, and so you have like that, and then you have that they ends up like in a poor kid in that little I don't know what you call those things, those little British gang where you got to get stuff right. if you want newsies. More. Yeah, if you want to become a newsie. And and so so it's all there, and it's a good Star Wars film, so I'm not being overly critical of it. But at the same time, it was like, why, it didn't answer the movie why Han Solo can't love Kira. It just lets Kira get, be evil, and it's not really Han's fault. He's just a naive dummy the whole time. And so, but maybe if they had continued, we would have saw it kind of come out, and maybe it would have like laid the roots for that. But
the only fan theory I heard about Solo that I thought pre-Revenge of the Sith would have worked for me is if Rey wasn't going to be nobody, that she was the child of those two. You know?
And I was thinking
the math doesn't add up, but
and don't worry, I'm not going to become like some the SJWs are ruining your Star Wars. I'm not going to become one of those dudes. Don't worry. But what I am going to throw on the table here and suggest is that let's just pretend Lucasfilm had a meeting today and they said, those sequels, man, they were right on the YouTube.com machine. We should get rid of them. Yeah, you know what? Let's just do Lucas's idea and let's make it a boy now. Well, you would get torn apart by people who were saying that they're changing Rey's story because she's a woman. Like they literally politically, in the current climate of the crazy world we live in, they just couldn't even do that.
Think about what it would do to their stock.
Yeah, even if it was earnest.
Just realistically think about when a company says we made a giant mistake and we're gonna undo all of that stuff we put behind that was generally well accepted. Like you gotta understand, like shareholders would be like, what is going on?
and we're not firing all of the people who were responsible for those films. We're keeping them all here to do it again. Everyone who made those movies is still here. Oh, and we can't bring back the original people because some of them have gone, some of them are over it. So
I mean, the quagmire, it literally is like that branching timelines scene at the last episode of Loki. He's like, just to unlock that idea, just like you end up with way more trouble than you deal with just like take the Rafiki quote. It's in the past.
Yeah,
like it's in the past. It happened.
Oh man, Emilio Estevez is back. He's all make you famous. No thanks.
I was gonna say Mighty Ducks 4.
Dude, I'm sorry, but I have no like Mighty Ducks nostalgia. I don't get it. I'm like, and like the Space Jam people and the Mighty Ducks people, like it is just beyond me. I'm like, what is going on? I mean, this was like the garbage that we were like, what are they doing? When I don't know what your experience is, but I was like, what is this stuff? But
I didn't care for it. Blockbuster Video. Look, it's like I don't see a lot of people going, man, we need a Casper sequel.
Yeah,
and there's a legitimate Ghostbuster in Casper. You would think I would be the one. Oh, Christina Ricci. It's got a cast. We got Dan Aykroyd cameo, but no one is asking for that. I don't know how especially the Mighty Ducks made it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Where's my Air Bud reboot?
Yeah. God, one of the funniest things I ever heard was during the Iraq wars was when Saddam's son like had like when they like raided the palace or whatever, they found like he had like all the Air Bud movies. He like
Really?
loved the Air Bud. Yeah, one of Saddam's sons loved the Air Bud movies, and like that's just always makes me laugh.
So
yeah. If you're ever bored, like look that up. It was a thing. Hey,
definitely not a Surf Ninjas fan though.
No, but I mean, but even Three Ninjas is a concept I can get behind. Like okay, there's three of them, and they're ninjas.
But there's Three Ninjas and Surf Ninjas.
And yeah, Surf Ninjas, cool.
Yeah,
make Surf Ninjas work, but like I don't know, like, and I'm like, yeah, it just. And I feel like I'm being the old man that's like yelling at the TV about something, but it's only because as a young man I was still like, what is this fucking garbage? You know what I mean?
I got to draw this Power Rangers commission, and I have a league of friends of fans who are like really into Power Rangers, and so I've been getting the request, when are you gonna draw Power Rangers? We're gonna draw Power Rangers. And I'm like, all right. It's the thing that when it came out, I was like, I'm getting older because I don't get it, you know. And I remember taking I had a little stepbrother. I had two little stepbrothers, and then a half brother. And my stepbrothers were way into this thing. And I had to take them to the theater to go see that movie. And I remember going in there like, okay, I hear they're using this silicon graphics tech for the Nintendo 64. So I suppose from a technical standpoint, I could watch it for that. And I'm watching this movie, man. And it's just like, it's torture. Like, it was just torture to be in the theater and do like, it's awesome, right, kid? Oh.
Yeah.
You know, it's tough.
I was gonna say, Steven says that when Lord and Miller got shit canned from Solo, my boner for the film creator. And
that should be on the DVD. Like,
on the right front, like
right next to the "Ain't It Cool" news quote. There's Stephen Meyer says.
Somebody put that on the poster, and then like no, awesome. It's funny because like I really did, like, as like a Willow fan, always wanted a Ron Howard Star Wars movie. I was always like on board for that concept, and then it happened. I was like, cool. So like I loved that component of it.
Wasn't he rumored to direct the prequels initially?
He was one of the people who they were. Darabont, Ron Howard. Were two of the other names. Spielberg, Darabont, Ron Howard, I think were the main names that were like floated and that talked to Lucas. And I honestly think the sequel trilogy's ideas for Lucas we were talking about a few episodes ago, how they didn't do them. It was, I think, the same scenario where Lucas was dropping the Republic is this, and there's a Jar Jar Binks, and there's, you know, and they pod race for this, and like, I think those directors heard it and were just like, I don't know what to do with this, and like I don't think that and that's why, you know, and then Pepsi steps in and pays them a
I think the Pepsi thing is a bigger deal because Howard worked with them on Willow. That's some pretty wild shit when you put it down on paper. Yeah, you know, and there's a thing called brownies. You're like the food. You know, no. Like, it is very, but I still think with you again when Howard was picked up to complete the film, I just feel like he gets Star Wars. You know what I mean? Like, he's still a great director, and that film I think works because of what he was able to bring to it. You know,
that film itself feels like the most Lucasfilm movie that they've made. Or
I love when he's driving the car. You know, when he's just doing the car and he's got that city behind him and the Corellian. Like, I love the look of all of that stuff, man. I think it's really good. Yeah,
my other critique of that movie, though, is, and that the director of photography did a good job for the most part, but man, it is too dark.
It's too dark.
It is too dingy, and too much is lost. It's like it really. It's funny because we were talking earlier, like, oh, you put some grain on it and Tarkin looks better. And I'm like, yeah, that was the one to like do that. This was not the movie, I think, to go in and take it to that place, because in the wrong theater, it looks terrible. If I watch it at a friend's house and they're not obsessively messing with the calibration of their TV like I am, you watch it there, it just looks awful.
And I love that cinematographer. He did, I think, was the Arrival. I want to say, he's fantastic, and I was super excited for it. My buddy is a cinematographer, so is a DP himself. We were just like counting the days until the movie came out, and then when I watched it, I'm like, this is dark. Like
Yeah.
dark, like I want to know what this looked like at the AMC laser, but they can't. I don't, unless it's a 3D projection where you have to have a certain amount of light calibration. Like that's a film where I'm like, you know it's gonna be played on repeat in no theater dirt mall, across from town.
But it also doesn't, I don't think it necessarily matches the tone of the film either.
No, not at all. Like it should have been like a Rise of Skywalker, like, or like the Duel of the Fates script when it was darker, something that was tonally more darker. This is like, when I'm
Rogue
like, why
One,
doesn't this should look more, it's like Rogue One or Ocean's 11 even, or a little Coen Brothers with the Woody Harrelson kind of like crew,
or train some movie about killing Osama bin Laden or something, but not but not the that kind of war movie has that kind of look to it. So yeah, that's, like I said, there's definitely things to be critical about in the movie, but I do love it, and it did deserve a lot better. Lopez says, I didn't notice the merch funnies t-shirt issue. Well done. 100% sure they don't exist anymore. It takes itself too seriously, like it's fandom.
I just remember getting the whole like getting the whole spiel about it, and I was not against it, because it is tough when you're like, this thing you love is now every day it's like, make the stormtrooper skateboard, and you're like, what does this have to do with Star Wars? Like, obviously they're just trying to cater to a bunch of kids who want to goof on it. I understand it. I think the downside has been that the merchandise post Force Awakens is too serious. Mm-hmm. Like, it's too, like, here's a geometrical pattern, and like this one represents the light side and this represents the dark side, and it's like triangles, and you're just like, I don't know what this is anymore.
I feel like a lot of it too, like it tries to like make, in my mind, this customer who may not exist, who goes like, oh, I am the light side, I'm gonna buy the light side shirt because I'm a dark side, I buy the red shirt. Like I feel like it's like kind of like pointed in that kind of direction. It feels, I just feel this condescension in a lot of it, and I don't know if it's just me being cynical, but that's what I get a lot of times. Like a lot of times I'm like, I feel like that shirt has good spirit, or that product has like it's in the right mode, and it just feels like it's a checkbox of, oh, they actually, ever since they made the Tauntaun sleeping bag, which was a great little idea and a fun thing when they did that. ThinkGeek did that back in the day, but ever since then it became like, I can't believe they make this, I must have it. And I'm like, no, I'm not that. I don't need a Star Wars toaster in 2021.
My pushback with licensing, and at the time, and I think I stand by it today, just thinking about it, was that you don't see like, I stand for Hydra, no, I stand for the Avengers. It's, here's this cool quote from the movie, like, I'm angry all the time, I'm always angry. Here's this quote line, this really fun line where it's like Captain America says, watch your language.
I hate sand.
I hate sand, it gets everywhere. That shirt might work like at a Hot Topic now. You need these quotes that people remember, and you need to make sure that the dialogue in your film actually, I'm not saying it's meta, I'm not going down there, I don't think that's the better thing, but there needs to be like relatable moments, like, don't get cocky, kid, shit like that you need those moments, and I don't think the movies have enough of those right now.
Mark Hamilton says, go to any Kohl's and they have a whole section of funny Star Wars shirts.
Well, that has changed since the Rise of Skywalker merch didn't sell. So I imagine now it's been like, we got to lean back on this other thing, because, plus I think, and I haven't touched the material in 3 or 4 years, so I can't tell you what their mentality is today. But I have to imagine that the Baby Yoda funness of the series, like him flying, and I got a chicken nugget humor and those sort of things, has changed their minds a bit. That, look, this can be more fun. That isn't making fun of it in a way, but it's leaning into people having fun with it.
Am I the worst jerk ever? Because that annoys the hell out of me. The whole chicken
not my humor
thing. No, I'm just like, what is this? It's not for me, so I just go. But So David says, I want to see the Lord and Miller cut of Solo, to which Mr. Geek Furious says, you want to see Lord and Miller's 25% cut of Solo? Now, we have no idea how much they actually filmed, but the one thing that I would say is I want to see it too. I want to see whatever it was, or just whatever the footage was. But at the same time, I don't think we ever will, because Lord and Miller aren't going to be like, yeah, let's cobble together like a movie we didn't get to finish and show it. That they're not going to want to. So they're never going to be, I think, in the camp of let's show it. And then no one else is going to be on their side at the company because they fired them. So I'm not holding my breath unless there's a weird leak someday, which is unlikely at that level at this point.
The closest we have to it, I think, is Chewbacca and the Millennium Falcon and Han Solo are in the Lego movie, right?
Yeah,
that's true. That's about it.
Yeah. Dell says, been here the whole time. I've been on my phone trying to figure out things. Like your
that life? Should be the quote on the box too. MakingStarWars.net chat room. You know what? All right.
I feel like if this was a podcast and it had like a reviews, it's gonna be like, it got me on my phone and they figured out my life. Steven says that if the Mighty Ducks really captures what it's like to play hockey at the age. Okay. So I get it. Like if you play hockey or whatever, stuff like that, I see like a connection to it. But it was just like, you know, like for instance, I even like the movie The Sandlot. It was a movie that was just like on cable when like you were sick. Like nobody really gave a shit about The Sandlot. But now you go to Hot Topic and there's like Sandlot t-shirts. And it's still kind of like, I'm like, is this really a thing? Or are they just trying to make it a thing? Like,
no, I was there when in t-shirt licensing, I want to say 2013, 12, 14, around there, when that started taking off on online. And it was like, we got to get this license. Everyone's remembering it. And so then I went and did the math. I'm like, it's been 20 years. So they were 5, 6, 7. So now they're hitting 30. That's the nostalgia zone.
Yeah.
That's the one that for some reason, and it couldn't have, I started saying at the time, was it movie rentals? It had to be on TV somewhere. At the time, all I was doing was playing obscure Japanese RPGs, watching anime, and like writing my own Star Wars fan fiction through RPG tabletop role-playing gaming. Like I wasn't watching TBS 3 o'clock, you know, like Sunday movie, you know, or the afternoon flip, the Sandlot, you know, it wasn't my thing, but that they hit around the 30-year-old age when that came out, so that's probably why.
So when we play the Star Wars RPG someday, are you like the dungeon master? Are you that guy?
No, I'm the guy. So how I used to do it is I hate stats and memorizing all that technical stuff. So I got smart. When I was a kid, I was like, you know what? I'm not good at that. My buddy, who I went to the army with, right? He was good at that. So I said, like the co-director thing, I'm like, you handle all of the stats. You got all the books. You know all this stuff. I'm just going to develop the stories. And I made pre-made characters for all the players. And then before the game, I'd walk them about 5 minutes who their character was and who they liked and didn't like and roughly why. And if you play in character, you will be rewarded. And if not, you will suffer. There will be consequences, you know? And so I would just handle the story element, and I'd have pre-made music made on tape cassette, you know, and I'd play and set the tone. Right. And then we would just and he even had his own character. He didn't know where it was going, but he'd had all the stats, so I didn't have to deal with that, you know?
Yeah. All right. So Josh says, I love the Mighty Ducks movie. I live in Minnesota, and those movies take place in Minnesota, so that's why.
You opened up a can of worms, Jason.
I guess I should never have talked about the Mighty Ducks. I admit that Turner and Hooch, that's a movie I could get behind.
They killed the dog. It's so
that dog though, he was wild, you know. Anyways, Patrick says, and to that composer for Solo, absolutely stunning work. Yeah, did a good job. I remember having a story about that, but before Giacchino came on, the other dude. Chunk has some very cool Star Wars cheat designs. Mark Hamilton says it's just an Instagram meme, the nuggies. Yeah, I'm like, no.
What's up with Fundy?
He eats. He likes soup. Grogu likes soup.
SpaghettiOs. And he likes them with the hot dogs. I know you don't, but he does.
He likes the hot dogs in the SpaghettiOs.
Can you spell Grogu in your soup? You
know? Creep by Lars says, do you think it's disappointing that Star Wars does not have a single trans character? Yeah, I guess like I would be up for it. I don't think that they shouldn't do it. I hope that when they do it, or I think they will do it, but I hope that when they do, it's like handled right. Like I hope it's not covering for the fact that it like they don't have an interesting character. Like I hope it's a good character, because then because it will be criticized by a certain like part of the fan base.
I know,
just
right?
The very concept. So I think that when they do it, they have to be good. Like that's what it comes down to. It has to be well done. And then after that, I think you kind of have like that barrier kind of taken down a bit and stuff like that.
And please get an actor who is of that that gender or non-binary whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know what to call it. Whoever they represent as, because the last thing we need is more Eddie Redmayne running around movies. You know what I mean? Like doing that sort of thing. Like it's just not. I mean, Elliot Page would be a perfect example of someone who could pull that off. You know? So,
yeah. I mean, and I'm just going to throw it out there that RuPaul would make a damn stellar Twi'lek.
Dude, I was like the biggest RuPaul cat in high school, and people were like, "Why, Rob?" I'm like, well, first off, I grew up with Queen, so I don't really get this whole whatever. And John Candy dressed up in drag all the time when I was a kid, which I loved for some reason, like because of SCTV. So I was like, the idea of I don't know, man. Like RuPaul was so great. RuPaul was on that Muppet show. Did you see the Muppet episode RuPaul was on?
No.
So the new Disney one. People are like, I don't know, it's fun, but the RuPaul episode is so good, I fell out my chair laughing.
Yeah,
like just watch it for the RuPaul clip alone. RuPaul's amazing.
Katya and Trixie Mattel have a show on YouTube that's like called It's the fun. I like Drag Race a lot. I think it's a great show. But their video series, it's like a podcast where they just roast shit for 20 minutes on a topic. It is literally like probably my favorite show on YouTube. Highly suggest watching that if you want to delve into some great trans performers that aren't, and the fact that if they're trans almost has nothing to do with it. They are in drag, but they are just, it's fantastic. It's the funniest shit I've ever seen.
I mean, it's a galaxy with billions of stars. You know, you buy in. It's like the opposite of the UFO show. We're like, look, it's a galaxy. We have 6,000, thousands, hundreds of thousands, billions of planets. There's not one other alien. And now you're expected to believe that in another science fiction universe with billions of stars, there's everybody but this group of people that that certain people don't agree with, right? Like, get out of here. You know, like that's ridiculous.
Well, Rick Jones says C-3PO has been there all along, and you know what's kind of funny is my son had the revelation the other day that C-3PO was a boy, that he is described as he, and I was like, I think if it's a robot, so it doesn't matter, but he was like, what? You know, like the whole time.
The only one with phallic genitalia in that situation is R2. R2 literally has something that plugs into. He's always. I was amazed watching that last episode of Bad Batch that gag still works. That you can take a little droid and just stick something in a wall and it works.
Yeah, no, it's a gift that keeps on giving. David says that Star Wars does have trans character. Tarek and Surret are trans non-binary Jedi. And
no one knows
you're not wrong, but I took the question to be like on screen,
right?
Not you know what I mean, like on screen, and I think it will happen, especially with the there's more of an open acceptance of trans people in the entertainment industry at the moment than there I think there's ever been. At least I hope so. That's my sense. And I could be
Hope
wrong.
so.
I don't want to speak for anybody and say, hey, they're all good now, everything's great for them. I'm not trying to go there and be that guy. But you know, and then like I've always wondered too, like you know, what percentage of the population, and this is me being I'm probably being a dick for even thinking this way, but I do wonder how Disney sees it, like, because they want to sell things to people. And so like when they go and they decide to make a choice on like characters or going down an avenue, like to what degree do they take that kind of stuff into account? Are they looking at like Drag Race is probably the biggest show that is pushing that, and I would wonder if they like look at that and if that has any bearing on it, what kind of choices they would make, because there is in a way like that whole like things do happen by committee in a way. But at the same time, like I feel like if somebody just stepped in and like wrote the character like that and it was like what and challenged the room, they may be able to get it into.
It's both things. They have every uncomfortable conversation that would not do well if it were exposed on the internet, because they have to, in the way that the military, war games, every possible scenario, you know, that's not something you want to hear. At the same time, they're doing that. They have a creative that they believe in, right? That, and you understand how this works. They believe in, and a creative says, I'm going to do this. And then they go, all right, you know what I mean? Like, we believe in that person to execute it, or that crew to execute it. So if you're going to go down that route, then we believe in, I think they care more that the people they're working with fulfill the ultimate vision of the tone that they want to have for everything they got moving forward, more than very little specifics, you know?
Yeah.
But someone does run numbers on, like, if we do that, what does that mean for merchandise? And that's sad, because, I mean, here's an example. Back in the mid 2000s, I wasn't allowed to put Black Widow on any shirt. Like, even after Age of Ultron, like, you know, if you had an Avengers team up, they'd be like, take her off because female characters don't sell on shirts. And I'd argue, I'd go, look, I don't know where this is coming from. All right. And now I know it was Ike Perlmutter and how that worked out. But at the time I was like, literally, these are going up on a wall in Walmart or Target. And right next to them was a Corona bottle, you know, with a bikini chick on it. You know, literally, I went and took a photo.
Yeah.
So, like, is it that the female characters don't sell, or you have, well, that's a sexualized, well, no offense, Black Widow's in some sexy, risque poses in these films, you know, and in their style guides. It's not all, you know, hoorah stuff. So she's like doing little poses, you know. So what's the difference? Yeah. It's not even tasteless like it's on a Corona bottle. And that's when I realized that, well, that's a culture at the studio. They just believe in their head that whatever it is, Marvel proper was like, this doesn't work, take it out. And so then I gotta deal with these like explanations, like, why is Wolverine on the Avengers? You know, like, you'd have to replace him with Wolverine. Well, he was an Avenger once. Yeah, but the average person does not understand Wolverine was once an Avenger. Like, this doesn't make any sense. So that has gone away now over there, but that's one of those things where they have done that, and fans see through it these days.
I also wonder too, like if they made a trans character, do they end up putting themselves into an uncomfortable place? And I'm not making an argument for them not doing it or doing it and saying this, but like, for instance, let's pretend they cast RuPaul as a Twi'lek mob boss in the next Star Wars movie, right? Well, now when people are going to demand that action figure, they're going to demand the Black Series figure. Why isn't it being made? And then when it's not made, if it's not made, it becomes a controversy. And if it is, it becomes a controversy. So they essentially have to be brave and willing to accept that. And are they, is the question I am asking. Like I said, I'm not pushing that for them not doing it, to be clear. I
think if they believe in the talent, they'll make the merch.
Yeah, I'm looking at what are the hurdles to getting there.
The bigger issue is if right before launch, whoever they cast in the role gets themselves in some crazy online scuttlebutt that they don't want to deal with, you know? Yeah. Then that's when they would distance further, you know? Like, they would just quietly release we know a few Star Wars actors who've gone through some tumultuous online scenarios. You know, their merch gets made, but it gets sort of just slid under the radar, you know, like it just gets quietly put out there.
So David has some good news. David says, I live in South Texas and have worked with 2 customers facing trans people for about a year and have not seen any or heard any issues. Acceptance has been amazing. So awesome. I hope that has been their experience, because it's really stupid that anybody would tell anybody how they should or shouldn't live their lives. And Star Wars is a great opportunity to show the good in people, especially when they are up in situations like civil war and you know, strife genocide. and genocide and all this like horrible stuff. And like, so you see how everyday people become heroes, and you also get to kind of like see people who you want to be like, or people who are like you. And so, you know, everyone should be able to see someone like themselves in a Star Wars movie, is my opinion. And I don't think it takes away from anybody. Like if they make the next hero an Asian woman or an Asian man, like it doesn't make me go, oh man, old white boy here, can't identify, don't see myself there. Like that isn't. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, as a little boy, I did see Luke Skywalker and say, hey, can't tell now, but he has blonde hair like me. That's me. I didn't identify with Han Solo, Luke Skywalker. You know what I mean? Like that was how it was for me. And so I think that everybody should have that opportunity.
And I wanted to be Bruce Lee when I was a kid. You know? Right. And then I found food, and I'm like, I will never be as thin as Bruce Lee. Forget the martial arts. I just can't pull off the weight.
Yeah.
You know?
You're like nunchucking sausages.
Until I nunchuck myself in the groin, and I was like, I'm done with the nunchucks. Yeah. I'm more of a bow staff guy.
As a kid, my dad had nunchucks because my dad trained with my dad was like a martial arts dude. I like went to I think he did something with Chuck Norris one time, but I didn't get any of that. I'm just like, hey man, I play guitar. These fingers aren't made for working.
These fingers aren't made for chucking.
They're not made for chucking, dude. Yeah, but anyways, we're at the 2-hour mark right now, so I think we're gonna call today a show. And anybody who wants to pick up on the discussion that we're having today, by all means, send in your questions tomorrow. I want to thank everybody who supported the show for the super chat today from our buddy. That was really appreciated too. And if anybody wants to support the channel, they can become a channel member on YouTube. And if you would like audio only versions of the show, or in addition to, you can become a Patreon supporter. And on Patreon, I upload the audio versions there. And I want to thank Rob for coming and hanging out with me again today. Like, bye. But yeah, and then but anyways, yeah, it was a good conversation today. We had other stuff planned, but we just ended up going down all the rabbit holes that we did. And I always kind of appreciate when the conversation just takes up the time, because that's what I want the show to be, is a fun Star Wars conversation, and we are having it. And yeah, and we will see you guys tomorrow. And if you're not here, well, you're gonna be sorry. No, okay, I shouldn't say that to somebody.
You're gonna regret it, internet.
I'm gonna find where you live, and I'm gonna drag you out. No, but anyways, I hope to see everybody back tomorrow, and I think yeah. And so everyone, thanks to Bespin Bulletin for having the story that kicked off the start of today's show. Make sure you check him out. Make sure you check out Star Wars Santa, and yeah. And thanks to everybody, and we will see you guys tomorrow. And here is the end of our show. I think. No, it's just the background I changed.
It's not about spaceships. It's not about spaceships. It's not about spaceships.